Thank you. Council, if you have come to order, it is 7 p.m. We do have a quorum. Councilmember Fleury should be here, but may be a little late, or will be a little late at this point, so we'll just add her as she comes. Just a minute, I'll ask everybody to stand. We'll be led in an invocation by our town manager, Tom Class, and then led in the pledges to the American flag and the Texas flag by Councilmember Lamont. Please stand.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of this community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that will affect our town's residents, staff, council, and visitors. And Lord, continue to remind us that everything we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth and for the greater glory of you and for the service of humanity. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In honor of the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. You may be seated. Citizens' presentations. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on any matter, whether or not it is posted on the agenda. The council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentations made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The council will hear presentations on specific agenda items prior to the council addressing those items. You may speak up to 4 minutes or a time limit determined by the mayor or presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete a speaker's form that includes the topics of your statement. Topics of presentation should be limited to matters over which the council has authority. Council, we have one person who signed up to speak, Jason Hoffman. Jason, if you would come to the podium, please state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Jason Hoffman. I live at 38 Cimarron Drive in Trophy Club. I've been a resident for about 11 years, almost 11 years. And I apologize if I'm a little bit rough here. This is my first time doing this, so. I'm hoping to give you guys some positive feedback. As a resident, I have 4 kids. They've all gone to Lakeview Elementary. They've all gone through sports. They've all needed to go to the bathroom. They've all needed to play soccer. We've had a very positive experience in the town of Trophy Club. I had a very positive experience in Greater Northwest Soccer Association. Just so you guys all know, I'm also the U7, U8 commissioner for Greater Northwest, have been for about 2 years, and this is a volunteer position. So what I'm hoping to just give you guys feedback on as a dad, as a resident, as a member of the school, as a member of the community, as a board member of the GNWSA, as a parent of children at GNWSA, okay? So first of all, I just wanted to say Lakeview Fields, I know you guys are all aware, a couple years ago they were in really bad shape. And I wanted to thank you all because you put an investment into our community. They are looking really good right now. Really good. A lot of the safety concerns that were there a couple years ago, including cracks that would, swallow a human's foot, no problem at all. Those are all gone in that area. The fire ants are gone for the most part, or under control. We have safety fencing along the creek to keep the kids out of the creek, which was a big concern prior, especially when you're playing soccer and balls are naturally going to go into that creek. Okay. You guys have also made a very nice investment along the roadway, improved the fencing, which was in bad shape. It was actually becoming quite an eyesore, leaning in certain places. You guys invested in that, made a very nice, safe fencing that looks nice to the community as well. So thank you. One thing I just wanted to, you also put in a connected sidewalk. You connected the sidewalk from the street to the pedestrian bridge, which gives a nice, safe way for parents, especially with young kids and strollers, to get back and forth along the field. So thank you for that as well. Okay. From a GNWSA perspective, just to share a little bit with you about the size of activity that we have going on. For the season that just ended regular registration a couple days ago, we have over 800 children registered to play soccer in GNWSA. Those are mostly split among Trophy Club, Roanoke, and Justin Fields. Of those 100 or 800 kids, we have 110 teams out of that. And each one of those teams needs to have a good, safe place to play and practice once or twice a week, just for the sport. Our fall practices are probably going to get started here in about the first week of August. Our coaches will be identified and communicated to in August. So practices are going to be needed. We're going to need field space for practices very soon, okay? And this is one of the reasons why Lakeview is such an asset right now, because we've been short on field spaces for quite a few years now. It's coming back online. It looks great. It's usable. So again, I want to thank you guys. This is all meant to be positive. With children out there comes the need for a bathroom. I know you guys are all probably fully aware of the public discussion that's been going on about the potential porta potty placement out there at Lakeview. Just to reiterate, that field has always had a porta potty. The 10 years I've lived here, it's had one. It was taken out about 9 months ago for the redo of the park. It hasn't been put back yet because the park wasn't quite finished. But the kids are going to need that. As a parent of 4 kids, I can tell you that that porta potty out there, even though nobody wants to go to a porta potty, it saved our bacon a few times. I had children, 1 child out of 4 who had digestive issues, and that thing was a godsend. And I know I'm not the only one. I've gone to school with 4 kids now, or gone through the process. I've met many parents who have the same issues. A porta potty or a restroom facility is an absolute must for kids. Okay? I know you guys know this. I know I'm preaching to the choir. As far as feedback on I know you guys, I'm sure you've been aware of the current placement out there that has been proposed. There's been some negative feedback from the community on that placement. I just wanted to give you my positive feedback for that placement and kind of just give you my observations as a parent, as a coach. The current placement where they have built a enclosure is very visible. It's in the middle of about 150-foot stretch of fencing that's safety. It's keeping the kids from the roadway, and it's very visible to all the parents and coaches who are sending their child across the field to go to the bathroom. That's one of the reasons that is an excellent location. The way it was designed and built, the rear side of that enclosure is locked under normal circumstances, so nobody's going to sneak out the back. They're not even going to have physically the room to sneak out the back. It's meant to keep the children on the non-street side of the fence, okay? And additionally, and also just keep them out of the street. So now we have 100 feet of fenceway both directions. This location is meant to keep the kids out of the street when they're going to the bathroom. The old location, the porta potty, prior to the improvements of the field, was along the creek. I can tell you from a parent and a coach perspective, when I'd send a child across there to that old location, it was very nerve-wracking because I didn't know who was back there. I didn't know who was along the creek or behind the creek. I didn't know if the child was going to go into the creek after they got done with their business. So that was not an ideal location, and the new location definitely improved that issue. In addition to that, the new location also provides for serviceability from the street. The trucks that have to service these porta potties can now enter and exit without ever leaving the street, the truck itself. And that's important in keeping the fields from getting damaged. You guys have put in a huge investment into irrigation on those fields. We don't want that destroyed by a truck having to drive across it to service. Let me see. I know that from a resident perspective who lives right around the corner, the appearance, we've tried to make that a very nice appearance that matches most homeowners in the area's fencing that they would have put around their own home. If it doesn't look like if it's a little bit too boxy, we'd be willing to look at landscaping to help improve that. As a resident, I would do it myself. I would contribute that money for the landscaping just because I want this to succeed. Going back to why I'm in the GNWSA, I had a very positive experience with my kids and my family. I want that positive experience to continue on for other kids and other families in Trophy Club. I feel like this is a piece of that. As small as this is a very important piece to make this field usable, and it's a requirement for our kids. So thank you. Thank you all for what you've done. Thank you for the investment you've put into the community with the fields. thank you for putting some thought into the location of the porta potty. I know it's not appreciated by some, and that's just the way it is. But I just wanted to say thank you. So,
Thank you, Jason, for coming tonight. Appreciate your comments.
you're welcome.
Anyone else in the audience wants to address the council during citizens' presentations? All right, don't see anyone wishing to. We'll move on to announcements and reports. Item number 1, receive town manager classes update regarding the following, discussion and provide input regarding same, police records and town hall. Tom?
Good evening. I just want to start with giving you an update on the police record scanning project that we started several months ago. Right now, we're using our in-house folks, the police explorers, to do this project for us. They're doing a fantastic job. They've completed 80% of all our arrest records. We expect to be at 100% completion in the next 10 days. We're going to go on to phase 2, which is going to be the scanning of all our police case files. We expect that we'll have that done before the summer concludes. And then we hope to start our final phase, phase 3, which will be the scanning of the legal records. We actually believe that we'll have this done before the explorers head back to school, and if we are able to do this, we'll have the complete police records electronically scanned. We won't have to take anything to New Town Hall with us. And then we're going to try to replicate this process with the town records as well in the coming months. And then as with regard to Town Hall, we attended the bi-monthly meeting with Steele Freeman and GSBS last week. The interior is substantially completed at this point. They're still doing the finishing touches on the atrium. Furniture is all in, almost all constructed. And IT is working with Steele Freeman right now on some cabling issues that seems to be ongoing and will continue for the next few weeks. And all the irrigation lines are completed outside, and we'll be ready to landscape when the weather's a little more permitting for us to do that. Most important thing is Town Hall is under budget and it's on time. And that's all I have, pending any questions.
Council, any questions on either of those matters? Hearing none, thank you for the report. We'll move on to item number 2, receive town council liaison updates, discussion of same. Economic Development Corporation 4B had a meeting on July the 17th, and the liaison is Rylan Rowe. And after that, Park and Recreation Board had a July 24th meeting, and the liaison is Councilmember Schaffner. Rylan?
Yes, sir. So the EDC meeting on July 17th, really they approved meeting minutes and then entered into executive session to discuss some of the finer points of the submittals that they have received up to this point on the RFP for the Trophywood District. Yeah, so there's nothing to report because it all happened in executive session.
All right, thank you. And Schaffner?
And mine will be just as quick. They're actually basically one agenda item of substance, and that had to deal with fees at Trophy Club Park. The board did decide to go back to monthly meetings. The council liaison's not a big fan of that, but I guess I don't have a say in that part of it. But mainly last night was just approval of minutes and updates and then talking about Trophy Club Park. So pretty
All right.
basic meeting.
Council, any discussion, any questions of those 2 items? Hearing none, we'll move on. The consent agenda, all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item number 3 and 4 are on the consent agenda. Anyone wish to remove either of those items? All right, hearing no one wishing to do so, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda item 3, which is approval of the minutes of June 27th, and item number 4, which is approval of the ordinance that we referred to have corrected.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 3 and 4.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Lamont and second by Rowe. All in favor, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. Item number 5, consider and take appropriate action regarding acceptance of the budget adopted by the Crime Control and Prevention District and and ordering a public hearing August the 8th, 2017, on the budget to be held in accordance with state law. Are we going to get a report on that, John, or is it just what we have?
It's just what you have. So we're just ordering a public hearing. We can actually discuss the budget through the action item on August agenda.
All right. Council, any questions about the budget at this time?
So we're not approving the budget at this time?
No, you're just ordering a public hearing so you can approve the budget on that next.
So if the budget needed to be changed, it has to go back to CCPD, correct? Because we've gone through this before.
We'd have to decline the budget. now.
Right,
Yes.
okay. So your explanation was, and I don't have it in front of me, on the 18,000, that you didn't know what we were gonna do.
That's part of it. So part of it is that we weren't sure whether this the evidence custodian would be approved by the town council, and so we had it both in the general fund and CCPD. There's also going to be some budget. It may not be 18,000 for an overlap. So whenever the evidence custodian starts, there's going to need to be training and handoff between the current evidence custodian and the next one. They are two separate positions. One of them's a contract employee now. We're actually looking to hire that full time, and we're not expecting that to be the same person.
So you're not expecting that to be the same person?
No, that's why there's going to be some overlap. So there is need for a budget authority there.
So is this training just basic to how we do business, or are you looking to hire somebody that has no experience and then train them?
No. The training that they would do with that evidence custodian would be to how we do it. They will have to go through a certification program, I believe. Patrick, Chief Arata can talk a little bit more about that. So they will have other training they go to attend at a future date, but most of that overlap is just so that they can learn how our files are organized, where everything's located, so there's a smooth transition between them, what the kind of the workflow is, where everything is.
It's also necessary for the accreditation process that we just went through, that there's a certain amount of standards that they have to apply to the
No,
position.
that's not what I dispute. The dispute is it's such a large amount. You spent 24,000 last year, and you're asking for 18,000 to just have somebody train to show somebody how we do things. It seems like an exorbitant amount of money to just train somebody that on something that should take days, not months.
No, I understand. We're not anticipating that, like, as soon as the beginning of the fiscal year begins, that we can immediately hire that evidence custodian. We have to go out, advertise for the position, finally get the position in, then do basically a month of overlap, and then transition that contract worker out.
So what is the training cost? Because what it states to us is the cost is $18,000 to train that person.
No.
You're stating it is?
No, it's not $18,000 to cost to train the person. I apologize. We don't know when the evidence custodian will start during the year. And so because we don't know when the full-time evidence custodian that will be paid for through general fund to start, we have to have money set aside to pay for the contract employee out of CCPD fund where we're currently paying for them.
Greg, you tried to get the floor.
No, it was basically same question.
So if we approve that position, why would you not put it out right then? And if you didn't, if you didn't hire somebody, you still have funds there available in that position where you wouldn't have to use that 18,000. That makes no sense to me. We're approving
A full year's
a
worth.
full year, and so it makes no sense that if you go 4 months, you still have money there for a full year of a person. So
You
to
are
me,
correct.
it just makes, unless you hire the guy on day one, you would never use that 18,000.
So what we'd have to do is basically increase general fund expenditures by the amount of whatever that overlap time is, that period between when those two positions overlap. I guess if it's a month, then you're talking about, I believe $2,000. Correct. It's $2,000.
But that's if the person started October 1st, and you're saying that they probably
No,
won't.
that's just to cover the overlap. What you're saying is the position could easily be paid for out of salary savings from
Right.
basically not paying. I
Correct.
understand what you're saying. So what we do is reduce the CCPD budget by then. At the time that we did adopt, we were not sure that either of those were going to happen because supplemental items weren't approved yet. You guys haven't had the full budget book in front of you. And so, again, certified totals are not in. Didn't know whether it is. You're right. These are items that are redundant to each other. But now that we're getting closer to having the budget book in front of you and understanding what expenditures will be included, we can back that number down, that 18,000 number down, and move it into the general fund. But when they approved the budget at that time, that's how we had it budgeted, just because we were unsure of how general fund was going to react.
And one final question. If the money is not used, did the board give any indication of what they would do with that money? Would they put it back in the fund, or do they have other items that they did not approve that they would like to approve? Any indication?
No, they had no expenditures that weren't approved at that time. There was no supplemental items that weren't approved or anything else like that. So without their designation, that would go immediately back in the fund balance unless given later direction by the board.
All right. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but this position has a certification but is not a licensed police officer, correct?
That's correct.
And so the situation we have ourselves in order to change the budget, we'd have to go back to CCPD, which would then delay the public hearing in one sense.
So we would have to reject their budget.
And we would have to reject their budget. If we approve it at the public hearing date, doesn't mean they have to spend it, right?
That would be my understanding, yes.
Okay, so I'm
That
just
is
kind of
correct.
clarifying that. That's my feeling at this point. Greg, you had your hand up.
But just to clarify operations, so the 18,000 goes back into their fund.
Yes.
Can they spend that on their own, or they have to come back to us for an approval for that expense?
For any budget amendment, it has to go to town council.
Okay, just want to make sure.
All right. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to order the public hearing for CCPD budget for August the 8th, 2017.
I'll make a motion to order a, to order a public hearing for the fiscal year 2018 budget for the Crime Control and Prevention District on August 28th.
August 8th.
Oh, August 8th, 2017, sorry.
Second.
All right.
Terrible job.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rowe, a second by Councilmember Jensen. Any further discussion? All in favor, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. Item 6, consider and take appropriate action regarding the fiscal year 2018 budget related to other funds and discussion of same. We have a presentation in our packet. Amber, were you going to take us through the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
All right. You have the floor.
Good evening, council. All right, so we're just going to go over all the other funds outside of general fund for 2018. I'm going to start off with the capital projects fund. The proceeds from these funds are from bonds issued for specific capital projects, and that includes improvements and equipment and such as. Just to point out a couple of things on the financial summary, under 2018, under the proposed for other sources, we don't have any street projects that the general fund is going to contribute to, nor do we have any debt issuance, so that's why that line is 0. The expenditures also that we budgeted for in 2017 for $9.9 million, that represents the construction of Town Hall, decreased to 2.9, and that represents just the street projects that we plan to do in 18. The expenditures exceed the revenue due to the utilization of the bond funds from the previous year's issuance. Over the next 2 fiscal years, the fund balance should decrease as street projects are completed. The 5 street projects that are slated to start in 2018 include Phoenix Drive, Indian Creek, and Trophy Club Drive. Those 3 projects we're expecting to be in construction through fiscal years 18 and 19. The engineering has been done for Phoenix Drive and for Indian Creek as of this year, and we're expecting to start construction in FY18. Trophy Club Drive, also we're beginning engineering, and we're waiting to see if we're going to bid out for construction at the same time as those 2 streets. For Sundance Court and for Meadowbrook Drive, we'll begin engineering at the end of FY18. That's the expectation in the CIP right now. Fund balance is decreasing. The bond funds are issued in FY17 for street projects. Moving on to our debt service fund. This pays our long-term debt that finances our capital improvement projects. Issuances for this include land purchases and improvement, construction projects and equipment. and the revenue from this is from property taxes. The other sources line for this fund, this provides property tax relief by using other sources to finance our debt. So I just wanted to highlight that. And we have transfers coming in from the EDC 4B, street maintenance, sales tax, storm drainage, and the CCPD. We have one new issuance this year, the 2017 CO. Revenue is projected to increase due to new properties, and the INS rate is projected to remain at 11 cents. The Court Security Fund provides security personnel, services, and equipment for the municipal court. This is primarily used to offset the bailiff expenditures. And the Court Technology Fund purchases and maintains technology for the municipal court. This mainly offsets the encode software and helps compensate that for the general fund. Both of these funds have a strong fund balance. The security fund, as I mentioned before, but also in 18, we're going to have items such as panic buttons, court training, and bailiff services. And just to emphasize, these two funds are limited in their use. CCPD fund, which we talked about just a moment ago, this finances the cost for crime prevention and crime control. It includes personnel, administration, and capital. It's funded by 0.25% of the sales tax. This fund utilized the 2016 CO issuance and contributed towards Town Hall. It also gave $200,000 for FF&E in Town Hall. Over the next 5 years, we'll recover the sales tax revenues as revenues increase. In FY18, an administrative vehicle replacement is planned for $27,000, and the CCPD board has approved this budget. The EDC 4B, this promotes economic development. It's funded by 0.5% of the sales tax. It has a strong balance, 153% of annual expenditures in FY18. Expenditures that we plan on doing include the debt payment for purchase of land for the Trophy Week District. And that's about, I think that's $200,000 for that budgeted line. OTD incentives for prior agreements with breadwinners and HG Supply, that's $140,000. And we also have a placeholder of $65,000 for future incentives. Our ending fund balance is expected to grow by $50,000. And again, the EDC 4B adopted this budget on July 17th. The Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund promotes tourism. Revenue comes from the hotel occupancy tax as well as the 4th of July event. We have a very strong fund balance again in this fund at 171%. Wanted to point out that for expenditures, the Veterans Memorial took place in 17. We had expected more of that to be completed in FY16, so those expenditures were pushed forward by 1 year. We have $50,000 per year budgeted for entryway monumentation and wayfinding signage. At this time, we don't know the scope of that project, so we didn't budget any expenditures in there, but you have a healthy fund balance, so we could always do a budget amendment later if the RFP passes. Just wanted to point that out to you. We have 3 positions budgeted out of this fund, which include our special events and communications manager, our recreation superintendent, and our recreation coordinator. And again, these expenditures for this fund is restricted by state law. Our street maintenance sales tax fund, this provides property tax relief for street-related improvements by shifting a portion of the expenditures to the sales tax supported fund. It's funded by 0.25% of sales tax. And I wanted to also point out the other sources line for $25,000 is a transfer to debt service. Some of those other sources. Revenues are increasing proportionately to sales tax receipts. We have personnel expenditures that we've reallocated from the general fund into this fund. We have a portion of our street supervisor and our project manager going here. And then in FY18, our budget includes $75,000 for panel replacements, $20,000 for crosswalk flasher maintenance, and $25,000 for the transfer to debt service, like I just mentioned.
Go ahead.
Amber,
Yes, sir.
the $20,000 for crosswalk flasher maintenance, can you just explain that? Is that we're out of warranty? It seems like a high number.
They're less than 2 years old and they only cost like 35 to put in.
This would be a good question for my community development. Do you know? Well,
left.
he was here.
He left us.
Here, one second. I
I'm
can
not
explain a
joking.
little bit of this. So we buy new batteries for them every single year. This is to cover any miscellaneous. So we had a little bit of damage to one of them this year, and so we had to cover those expenditures, and they weren't planned. This covers any miscellaneous repairs, damages. If these funds aren't utilized, it just goes back to fund balance. But we saw it increase expenditures. Also, repaint those crosswalks every single year. Batteries, the panels, the solar panels on them. I think there's those, the buttons, any operator error that we have with those, reprogramming them, the software to support that. So to go set all of that, there's an annual software cost to go set those times. So there's the annual maintenance cost for that. And but I believe there's just a good amount of money in there for repairs. I can look into that and get back with you later.
So what is our annual TCO between batteries and software licenses? Because those sound like the two things that you say we got to deal with no matter what. Just a word to the wise. When someone brings something here, I want to hear what it's going to cost in out years. It's not a good look to spend money on something and then come back 2 years later and say you need more than 50% of what was spent initially. Even if it's all justified, it's just a shock to the system that doesn't make anyone happy.
Sorry, our description about that is a little mishap. That's my fault. This also pays for your street striping. So a lot of this actually goes to this. My apologies. Yeah, I wrote part of this presentation, so this is me. I didn't include that in the description. All your street striping comes out of this $20,000 as well. My apologies.
John, didn't we have some of those destroyed this year too?
Yes, they were paid for by those who
We had a postal worker run over them, and we got restitution through the court on that.
At least it was them and not a person standing there pushing the button.
Maybe telling you something different next year.
My apologies for the
We did get
discrepancy.
restitution on that to the court, and
So this is a basket of a
Insurance.
lot of things just thrown into a number.
Yes, the more apt the description for the line is signs and markings. And under the line description, which you guys will be provided whenever we hand you the budget book, we'll give you all the description line builds of all of this. Yes, we just didn't send it out at this time because it's still preliminary. And so there's still a little bit of change. We got our last certified totals in today. So we should be getting everything nailed down.
And just, Amber, I apologize. Can you go back to page 40?
I'm sorry, I don't know the page numbers. Is there a title that you have question?
Yeah, it's the CCPD.
Oh. Okay.
The vehicle replacement, is that another vehicle? Because we have in our proposal a couple of PD vehicles.
Yes, that is an admin vehicle.
That's a third vehicle?
No. Okay. So there's a patrol vehicle that is being replaced based out of the general fund. There's an admin vehicle that is being purchased out of CCPD fund. I sent a bit of an email. This one's a little bit more confusing. We have currently a Tahoe that's an admin vehicle. That's going to be repurposed to be a patrol vehicle to run one of the patrol vehicles off the line that will be traded in. So we're replacing an admin vehicle. That admin vehicle is becoming a patrol vehicle. That patrol vehicle is moving off the line and it will be replaced. So it is two vehicles for police that we're requesting for this next year.
I think the last time we were looking at the budget, that was listed as a requested item, but not where it was funded from. So I think we talked about that same item. It's just, was it in the general fund budget or the CCPD budget? Wasn't mentioned.
But there'll be two vehicles.
Yes, there's
Okay.
a patrol vehicle.
Proposed. I mean,
yes.
we have to approve it, obviously, but proposed there are two vehicles.
Yes, one out of CCPD, which is the admin, and one out of the general fund, which is the patrol vehicle.
Okay, sorry, Emma.
That's fine.
So are you going to TERS now?
Yes, sir. TERS.
So I had a question about that unless you answer it in your presentation. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1. And this is held in the Trophywood District through the matching Tarrant County real property increments. There's a negative fund balance due to the lump sum payment of $400,000 as incentives to Trophywood District in 2016. And there's also another outstanding liability of $350,000 to be paid in this upcoming FY18 for infrastructure incentive in the Trophywood District. The primary generator of this revenue of this fund is property tax, and it will take several years to become solvent. Our current estimations is about 10 years for solvency.
So can you be a little more specific about the 350,000 as to, is it going to be an additional payment for Breadwinner's location, or is this a payment for the HG location?
This is just HG Supply.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Infrastructure. Yeah, the infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. Okay.
So I thought the total exposure was 1 million in that fund.
That is correct. There is a line within that agreement that says as long as the fund is solvent, that will make those other payments. So it's got to reach solvency before those payments can actually start being made.
And so right now, that fund is, any money is reimbursing the town. The town has already paid the 400,000, so they're
Yes.
reimbursing the town.
Yes, it's digging itself out, which means it's increasing the cash balance of the town because there is a due to
Right.
for that.
And,
from
and
them.
we're going to talk about this more in executive session,
Yes,
I
sir.
think. So.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay. The Recreation Programs Fund, this one, it's functioning as we had intended. The revenues meet expenditures. So all programs that come out of this fund must have offsetting revenues, and it's meeting that goal. The Trophy Club Park Fund, we're excited that actually the park is recovering quicker than we expected from the 2015 flood, and we have received the grant revenue for debris removal. However, FEMA has placed us on hold, as you're aware, and so no expenditures for that debris removal have been budgeted at this time.
Greg, did you have a question?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This fund may need to be remit the revenues back to FEMA. I think
Correct.
you meant to say if instead of is.
Yes, sir.
Project does not continue.
Yes, sir.
So are we already in the, if we have to give that money back, are we in the
Right, so-
red, the black?
Well, so we'll break even. So if you look at FY18, the ending working capital will be 62,536. So if we have to remit back, I think it's 60,000, 61,000, we'll be breaking even. So we could still do the debris removal, even if we had to return those funds, but it's not.
Break even is, I wouldn't use
Yeah.
that term, but that's okay.
Yeah. So to speak on that a little bit more, we removed personnel in FY17 from this fund, and it'll take several years before we'll probably put personnel back in here again, because we want to see that this fund will be able to be at least at 100% of expenditures. So basically, if there's another catastrophe that happens, it could operate for at least a year, or have the funds to operate for at least a year. So we want to get back to that point before we offset the general fund and put personnel back
Say that
here.
again, you're gonna pull personnel out of this?
We already have. That was in this FY17.
So can I,
We even did that before.
maybe you haven't, I don't know if y'all have been here when we've discussed this in the past, but my whole thinking on this park fund is, one, obviously I'd love to have a fund that replenishes itself, kind of a catch-all type fund. But I don't agree with putting personnel in this fund unless they do something for the park. So in other words, I'd much rather recapture or code something into the park if somebody actually does something, not just put a person in because the park can then pay 50% of that person's salary. The reason is because it's gonna flood again, and we're continuously playing catch up. We never can get to the point where we can start having a contingency fund to then pay back when we do have a flood, because it's gonna flood. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, and so I'd much rather refund the park or put money into the park, or have the park refund the town, I'm sorry, if somebody actually does something for the park, rather than just stacking a person in there. That's my contention. I don't know what the others feel.
Yeah, Rylan, I'll just
second what Philip said, because we've over the past few budgets we've done that little by little. Jay-Z can probably remember there were a few little pieces of half head count or quarter head count here or there.
Right.
Then they were just done that way to alleviate general fund
Right.
expenditure to a certain degree, and we've tried to kind of normalize that over the years. And I think it's a good, assuming we can make the numbers work advantageously for everyone, it's a little easier to account for and straightforward if we continue to just fund all of those personnel
Okay.
from the same places as much as we can.
Greg?
Oh, obviously I disagree. It's not our park. We should know what our operation costs are, what our admin costs are. We'll still lose money on it, I get it, but we should at least know those costs are. It's a big park, and taxpayers are paying it. It's a federal park.
I'm not
should at
saying we
least
shouldn't know what things cost.
But if we pull in everything out, you're not gonna know what it costs.
Yeah,
are.
but
That's not what we're saying.
But
Talking
in
about the funding
in the
source.
past, they have put, like Jacob, 50%. He may only spend 10% in the park, so why are you putting 50% of
Well,
his
I'm not talking about the
labor?
percentages. You're saying pulling it all out. Are you saying pulling it all out? Maybe
I-
it's only 10%, but we should
I
figure
don't
that
think we're
out.
putting, I don't know if we've put arbitrary numbers in. I think there's always been a thought that that's how much percentage that person actually contributed.
So we, in about 2 years ago, we decided, I believe it was actually last fiscal year, decided to move Jacob back into the general fund. This was going to create a quicker time for the fund to recuperate itself. And I believe what Amber's point is that this fund needs to grow at least 100% of its expenditures per day, like per year, in fund balance before we ever talk about people going in this fund again, other than the guard attendants, like the gate attendants. They will continue to be out of there. It's not all personnel. There's an administrative transfer to cover expenditures for this fund, but we need at least a whole year of operating revenue in fund balance before we ever discuss doing anything else in the Trophy Club Park with personnel wise or offloading any expenditures. And I think that goes to what you guys want. This fund needs to be able to protect itself if a flood happens, if we lose a year of revenue, if we have to go out and do all this debris removal again, and we have to have those money in fund balance to do
We
that.
still, go ahead.
I'll speak, and then I think I heard Tim and then Greg try to get the floor, so I'll go down the road. I support the idea that we don't just allocate a percentage of a person necessarily. However, I would like to be able, at the end of the year, when I'm looking at the fund and whether it's solvent or not, be able to say, well, what do we think we spent in labor, labor and those benefits on that park? I don't know how we necessarily accomplish that without some bookkeeping aspect of that, or you've got a side spreadsheet that you're trying to follow, which is hard to do. But I think that's where Rylan is coming, is we'd like to know what our cost is, but I don't just want to arbitrarily say it's $100,000 or it's some percentage of a person necessarily. That's just me. So Tim and then Greg.
Yeah, I was just going to expand on that. It doesn't matter where we book it. I understand where we have to book it, but we want to be extremely cognizant of where our payroll hours are going, right? And, you know, if nothing's going on at the park, then what was that person doing for the year, right? And if the park is open and he's got a lot of time going on over there, then maybe he wasn't needed at the other job in the first place. So we want to be as efficient as possible. So I'm sure that you're going to continue to track that, even though it's going to be booked differently. And we want to do that through, you know, through all personnel in all departments. So be as efficient as possible.
And I think this really,
Greg had his hand up first.
no, it was me. He said he didn't.
Oh,
Oh,
he
go
did.
ahead. I thought you said.
I just reminded, we do have a lot of volunteer hours in that park, and they could easily go away. So the park is an expense. I still think we should know what our expenses are.
All right, Philip.
The whole reason that this came about is because the park was completely underwater. And we have an individual whose 50% of their payroll came out of that park. There's nothing that they could have done in that park. It was underwater. And so that's why we made the distinction, hey, only book for what a person does in that. And I think that there are years when a lot more than just one person does 50% of his time in there. There's a lot of events, a lot of things happening. We want to capture all that and have the park pay that back. But some years, like I say, it's going to be zero because it's flooded.
All right, let's move on without objection. Go ahead.
Thank you for that direction. That's very helpful for us actually budgeting this and doing payroll. All right. And to wrap up, we will talk about the Storm Drainage Utility Fund. This fund shares part of the personnel with streets and offsets expenditures in the general fund. Revenues are increasing from the storm drainage fees, and the ending fund balance is strong. Over the next capital project cycle, specific attention will be paid to whether storm drainage improvements are needed to better maximize the use of these funds. And that's it.
I have a
All
question.
right, so
Okay.
Go ahead. I have a
Eric had his hand up first, and then I'll come to you, Philip.
In regards to CCPD, EDC 4B, and street maintenance, all of those funds generate their revenue from one source, correct?
Yes, sir.
Only sales tax.
Sales tax.
Two of which, 1/4 of 1%, one of which, 50% of 1%.
Right.
Therefore, they should proposed revenue ought to match. Why don't they?
Proposed revenue ought to match.
If CCPD's proposed revenue for 2018 should be exactly the same as street maintenance and should be exactly 1/2 of EDC 4B, so why are
That's
they not?
actually very interesting. So the CCPD, not all the organizations, some organizations are actually exempt from the CCPD sales tax. So I think we receive about 91% of that 0.25% of the sales tax. So that's why you're not going to see it exactly match.
Thank you.
And actually,
And
we
Same
corrected
thing with
that.
street maintenance and EDC 4B, or do they match up?
Street maintenance versus CCPD. Street EDC4B receives 1/2 penny, and street
Street
maintenance
maintenance is a
receives
quarter.
1/4, so it should be
Right.
half.
So it should be exactly 1/2.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
All right, and
Yeah, I have,
Philip, you have a question?
I have questions from the beginning because I thought we were holding our questions, but we didn't. So,
Oh.
on the
Never hold for
town, if you go back to the street projects, have we notified the MUD exactly of what we're going to do? We have. Okay. And then I have no idea because I'm in the pallet business and not in the street business. But when they are the water lines, and maybe Nick knows this, are typically the water lines in the street or are they in the easement?
They're in the easement usually,
Okay. So
cross driveways many times.
So here's a legal question that I have, and you don't have to have the answer. You can get it for me. If we do a street project, and the MUD does not participate because they've talked about at some of their meetings prioritizing their projects based on need, not on what we need, but what they need. And so they're talking about a whole different part of town doing projects. So if we do a project, say Phoenix Drive, all right, and Phoenix Drive is an old street, and let's say that the water line is in the street and it has to be moved. Can we require the MUD to move their line at their expense into the easement? And
It has to be moved because of where it's located.
so in
the
other
time of
words,
doing
it was built in the street, but we have an easement. Typically, if we touch something, we have to repair it. So if it's in the street, can we require the MUD to move it to the easement before we touch it? So that we don't incur,
I don't want to shoot from the hip.
Right, I
thought,
understand.
but I'll look
and
at it.
and I'd like to know a legal opinion on that because I think that we probably are gonna find this type of situation. And if they're not gonna participate, I don't wanna be responsible for their line, you know,
It's like taking your kid in a china shop. If you break it, you got to be careful.
well, I know, but I'm saying if the line's not supposed to be there and it's supposed to be in the easement, but these streets are so old that it could have been,
Could have been put there before the easement.
I'm just saying that I think that may happen and I'd like to know.
I think I will look at it.
Okay,
I'm afraid you're going to have different answers depending on the age of the street and different times when they came in. That's just a guess from right now, but I will look at it.
okay. It'd be much easier if they would participate with us, Bill. But anyway, I just would like to know that
All right.
answer.
Any questions of the budget presentation? So, Amber, when will we get more detail about what's in the budget.
Yes, sir. So we have finally gotten the Denton County appraisal values in, and John just said we got the Tarrant County. I didn't know that. Like I said, that just happened today, this afternoon. So we should be wrapping up, and probably the second council meeting in August, we'll be presenting it in its entirety to you.
So the kind of detail that we ask about,
What we had expected to do was just export from InBudget, which is our software that we use to build the budget, and that has every single line item and all the detail within
Okay.
that line, those line items. So that would give you a full explanation of all the nitty-gritty.
so I would sure like to get that a week before that next meeting.
Yes, sir. Ample
So-
time to go through. That's a lot to look
So
through.
there
Yes, sir.
is a lot to go through.
Yes, sir.
And then it's a lot for y'all to react to as we come up with questions, right?
Yes, sir.
Amber is actually going to make that, we're working on the Excel thing, but try to make that so it's searchable and easily more usable friendly. She does an amazing job with an Excel. And so that's actually our goal, is to make a complete, a document that's a little easier for you guys to use, utilize, search, go to more easily.
Okay. Anything else on item number 6, which was the budget? Council?
I'm done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so
Amber.
much.
Item number 7, discussion of items for future agenda to include agenda items for consideration on the August 8th council agenda and items on the town council future agenda list. Council, that's on page 56 through 58. Would like on page 57, I think our last meeting we had talked about bringing back our rules of procedure, and so that's on this agenda. As I reviewed this agenda, it's already full of a lot of things, and I talked to Councilmember Schaffner about this item. He had requested it, I believe, and he didn't have any problem with moving that back another meeting if we need to. Yeah, I'm just concerned that this meeting, when we're doing all these hearings and approvals of various things,
Tree houses.
it's gonna really be a big meeting, so I just thought it would be better if we didn't force ourselves. So, council, anything that you wish to add or comment about 56 through 58? Hearing none, we then have completed the printed agenda up to our executive session, and it's 8 minutes before 8 when we're supposed to start our joint meeting. Council, what would be your preference, to go into executive meeting for 5 to 7 minutes, or just to
Hold.
go into recess and we'll do the joint meeting at 8 and then come back? Is that your preference?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So it is 7:52, and we will stand in recess until we reconvene at 8 o'clock. All right. Council, if you will come to order, it is 8:02 PM, and we have returned from recess, and I'll go to Board Chairman to call his meeting to order.
I call to order at 8:03, Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. We do have a quorum with Mr. Director Thomas, and it is, as I said, 8:03. We will go into a joint session meeting, and if no one objects, and with the acceptance of the mayor, I suggest that we turn it over to him to run through the agenda items. Does anyone have any objections?
No objections.
Okay. Mayor, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you. I guess Renee's handing out a change, or is it just a
This is the
bigger copy?
This is the fire budget with the mud side and the town side together.
Okay. And did any data figures change that were in your budget from this?
They changed from what we sent out last Friday because we just got the certified,
Oh,
final
okay.
certifieds today.
Okay, all right. It's right up to date.
Yes, sir.
All right. We will go to the council agenda item number 9. What number is that on your agenda? I don't have that in front of me.
Is that our first one?
Is that 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. it's
All right.
one.
Review and take appropriate action regarding the interlocal cooperation agreement for administration of fire protection services between the town of Trophy Club and Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. There are a series of reports there. There's a copy of the agreement. There's also some inspection reports and things that have been provided to both sides. I don't know if those inspection reports and maintenance certifications went to the MUD separately or not, did they? Or this is your first chance to see them?
No, we've seen.
You've seen them, okay. Council, so this may be new for you. Anybody have any questions about those inspection reports and things that were provided as part of the packet?
Not here.
Is there anyone on
Chief
the
Carroll,
MUD?
any comments?
No, sir. The packet is complete with all the same information that was presented to you in April with the updates year to date.
All right. And Mud, did y'all have any questions?
No.
All right. From the town standpoint, I would entertain a motion to receive the reports that have been presented in the packet. Someone wish to move to receive them?
Make a motion to receive the reports as received at the dais.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, Councilmember Lamont moved and Councilmember Kurt seconded. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, call for the vote from the council. All in favor, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. I'll turn the meeting over to President Carr.
I'll entertain a motion to approve, take appropriate action on interlocal agreement, cooperation agreement for administration of fire protection services between the town of Trophy Club and the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. Do I have a motion? Motion by Vice President Wilson. Do I have a second? I recognize Secretary Treasurer Rose as a second. Anyone have any discussion on it? I see none. All in favor, show of hands. I have myself, Vice President Wilson, Secretary Treasurer Rose, and Director Hayes. All four, no opposed, passes.
All right. Go on to Town Council Item 10 and MUD number 2. Consider and take appropriate action regarding the Fire Protection Services fiscal year 2017-18 budget. What's presented before council, we had a copy of a budget that was prepared by the fire chief and staff. The MUD has part of their packet, had a budget that they were working off of. And what's been handed out at the dais tonight is an updated copy of what the MUD has, where Renee made sure what the town had was listed in a column, and you adjusted some things based on the fact that you got certified tax rolls. So the changes that got affected by the certified tax roll are down in the slightly gray area on page 2. Is that where you're kind of dealing with that, or?
That area on the bottom of page 2 is where we determine what the MUD pays back to the town monthly. And what that does is we take the total of the budget and we subtract out the items that we pay directly out of our side of the budget, and we take out the revenues, the PIT assessment, and the fire permits, and the Denton County pledge. Those three things come out, and what's left is the $608,896. That's the total we will be paying the town in monthly payments of $50,741. So basically, if you take the $608,896 and add back your revenues there on the top part of our first page of the budget, it equals your $1,105,636. So.
All right.
Okay.
And so,
It's actually just frozen. So sorry.
that's all right.
Got a hammer.
So sorry.
Okay, Amber and John, I know you haven't maybe had too much chance to review the new spreadsheet, but did you have any other considerations that you wanted to call our attention to? Whether it's in the fire budget or this consolidated item?
No, Mayor, not at this time. We're going to review this over the next couple of minutes and just make sure that there's nothing. We just want to review the most up-to-date spreadsheets. So
right.
a few minutes.
Chief Carroll, I know today you were comparing the items in your budget to what the MUD had in their packet. Were there any differences that you came up with or questions?
No, sir, there was not. There was a couple of line item changes where the MUD did not have a line item that the town had. So there was a change for Denton County dispatch fees, but the amounts were all exactly the same. The only difference that I see between this spreadsheet and the one previously submitted on that would be of concern to the town would be on the revenue side. Originally, they had $16,000 coming in from Denton County Fire Pledge. That is down to $10,000 now, which is accurate. They get $10,000 for fire calls within Denton County, and we got $6,000 last year between EMS, and that was a mistake on our part to give them both numbers instead of just the fire calls.
Okay. All right. Renee and MUD Board, any questions?
No, I just want to make a note. Renee actually did an exceptional job, and she had calculated the tax rate at, is it correct, at .06870? Is that the number we're looking at?
Hold on. 0.06870, yes.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
the
based
projected
on the
tax rate.
numbers as they are.
Right, and that's down from the current rate.
Yes, the previous year is in the left, well, y'all, yeah,
Yeah, point zero
In the-
seven four four five.
yeah, so it is down.
I just want to note that.
All right. So we are agendaed to where we could take action on this if we wanted to. However, all of this has kind of been coming together very quickly, and so you may want some time to look at it. Just a moment. So a note says, town will prepare a budget for fire, present to the town council and district for approval at a joint meeting before August 1st. So that's wording in the interlocal agreement?
Correct.
And both parties shall approve the contractual budget by August 15th. So are you saying, based on the ILA, that we should take action tonight?
That, I would defer to the attorney.
So what,
I'm just the
David,
paralegal.
what the ILA says is town will prepare a budget for the fire, present to the town council and the district for approval at a joint meeting before August 1st.
For approval at a joint meeting?
That's what it says. So we
So if
both
it's-
should take action then.
Sounds like the approval has to be in a joint meeting too, the way you're saying.
Right.
So if you don't approve it tonight, you're gonna have to schedule another
We
joint
could come
meeting.
back with changes, though.
You could amend the budget later.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could approve one and amend it before beginning of, it just says the first approval.
Before the
needs to
budget
be-
is posted, yeah. But I think, as Philip said, we need to approve it by August 1st. If amendments come up, then we can do it before the deadline.
Yeah, if there's something material that comes up, then we can make those modifications.
All right. So council, I would entertain a motion that we approve the fire budget as presented tonight for 2017-2018. Who would make that motion?
I'll make it. I'll make a motion that we approve the 2017 and 2018 fire budget.
I do have a second.
Second.
I do have a question.
All right, it was moved by Councilmember Fleury, seconded by Councilmember Schaffner. We have a question.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
Jensen.
Line item in regards to vehicle maintenance, why is it doubled?
Are you looking, do you have the number?
Yes, sir, under town expenses. That went from 20,000 2017 budget to now 46,000 in 2018.
Yes, sir. If you look in the fuel line item as well, we moved about $13,000 out of fuel into vehicle maintenance. The old budgets had both preventative maintenance and fuel in the same line. I found it very difficult for us to track accurately those numbers and expenditures and be able to forecast fuel costs. So we'd actually divided that out. So we actually pushed that money into the vehicle maintenance budget. So that's about $14,000 of it. And the rest of that is we had preventative maintenance budgeted in that line item, but no line for unforeseen repairs that were needed. So that money always had to be found in other places. So we have a little bit of money set aside now to make those emergency repairs if needed.
All right. And Philip had his hand up.
Yeah, and this is mainly to the benefit of the Mud Board, since this is the first year that we've actually ran the fire department. I think if you will look at a lot of line items, whether it be safe, training, whether it be, things like, physicals, tests, things like that, you're gonna notice a jump, you know, from like physicals and tests, 700 to 4,000, and training to different thing, you know, a jump in that number. And I asked the chief about that because that's the first thing that pops out when I look at this. And I think that what you're seeing is, to Chief Carroll's credit, he is identifying things that were deficient in previous administrations, training that wasn't being done, tests that weren't being done. And so I think you can take comfort that we have a great chief. To Tom's credit, he hired a great chief. And so he's identifying these things that I think all of us knew were happening or weren't happening, and we were frustrated by it, and now it's starting to happen. And we're starting to see the organization ran like the organization should be ran.
All right, anybody on the mud have any questions?
I have a general question on salaries, regular, if I could. I was wondering, when you calculated the increase in salaries, how you went about doing that. For example, do you include a CPI urban cost accelerant in that, or how did you do that?
All right, so the change in salaries include a increase to your part-time firefighter pay, and also the amount of time that your part-time firefighter is here. And that was done to look at how often we were down a 5-man crew. And so Chief Carroll went through, estimated that out, and we saw the deficiency. So instead of hiring three more people, so one for each shift, so that you're never down that number, or we increased the amount that we needed for part-time. But as far as estimating out a COLA or a merit increase, we used a 2%, which is factored across organization-wide, and then hatched that out per how many people we had in fire.
Okay, that 2% checks pretty close with what I saw this evening. From May 2016 to May 2017 in the DFW Metroplex, it was 2.1. So I'd say that's extremely close. Thank you.
I have a question. I noticed that the physicals and training went from 8,000 to fiscal year 2018, 0. I'm assuming that there's still a requirement for physicals for firefighters. Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. That again was a line item change. So all of the physicals now are being housed under the line item pre-employment physicals / testing, which is 01256. Well, I'm sorry, 01256 52290. So all the required testing is now housed in the same area. Again, this is really just budget tracking for me. Now I can see how much money we're actually spending to test our employees, whether they're new employees or existing encumbered employees.
All right, council, you have a motion and a second before you.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead and ask.
There's a couple things. This tags along with Councilman's thing. On the vehicle maintenance, you went up, but then fuel and lube, you went down.
Yes, sir. And that's what I was talking about. Fuel, within fuel, we had preventative maintenance costs.
Okay.
I didn't feel like that was necessary to put those in the same line. I wanted all vehicle maintenance costs in those same lines. So whether it's a lube, whether it's preventative maintenance, what it is, it's all going to be housed in a preventative maintenance line. Only fuel is in the fuel line now.
Okay, so they can can they correct that? So it just says fuel and lube?
I can change it.
Okay.
I mean, I can change that on our
Yeah,
part
that's
of
what
the
I'm saying.
budget.
Okay. And then on the building maintenance, does that include any roof repairs?
No, sir. Roof repairs will be completed this year.
Okay, what's the 16, just routine maintenance?
Yes, sir. 16 is routine maintenance.
And then communication, is that just normal increase up to a couple, 8140?
Let me check on that just one
It's
second.
on communication and mobiles.
It went from
89 to 13.
13.2.
Yeah, excuse me.
Oh, yes, sir. On the communication line, a lot of that is firehouse software increases. So the software that we use for our record management system, we had no record management system software for building inspections. So we have added that software. It's basically a module that gets turned on with our current software. So it's not truly a new addition, so we didn't present it as a supplemental request since it's just a module. But those increases are incurred because of that.
Okay, miscellaneous expense, it looks like it always was around 1,000, now it's 6,000.
Yes, sir. Again, this is moving around money is all it truly is. If you look at the budget as a whole, we've dropped that operations budget by about $20,000. What I was able to do is identify where we were spending money on miscellaneous expense, buying everything from hose appliances to foam systems for the truck, those kind of things. They were bounced around all over the places, and so I was just taking all those monies spent and I put them in one area. So that miscellaneous expense will be just as it shows on there. It's mainly just the things that day to day are needed for the fire department. If we need more absorbent for car wrecks, if we need more foam for fighting fire, then all those things are purchases through there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, Bill?
On, well, we've talked about fuel going down, but uniforms took a significant decrease. And can you talk to the 31 down to 6.6?
Yes, sir. If you also look, we had a significant increase under protective equipment.
Okay, so you moved protective equipment out of the standard uniform category?
That's exactly right. Before we had both PPE and uniforms in the same line item, and what happened was our gentleman that takes care of uniforms overspent that budget into the PPE money because he looked at it and thought he had $31,000. That was prior to my arrival. Now he knows that exactly how much he has for uniforms, and we know exactly how much we have for PPE and other safety equipment like SCBAs.
Thank you.
All right. Council, do you have any questions?
Oh, is this our motion?
So at this point, I have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the budget. I'll call for the vote unless you have a question. All in favor, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. I'll turn the meeting over to President Carr.
Okay, this is in regards to our agenda 2, consider and take appropriate action regarding the fire protection services fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the fire protection services fiscal year 2018 budget as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice President Wilson. You have a question?
I was gonna make a motion.
Okay.
I have a second.
Okay, I have a second by Secretary Treasurer Rose. Any discussion?
I would like to point out a couple items. I'm reading off page 195 on the packet. The forecast for revenue and expenses in 2017 is $1,529,000, and in 2018 it's $1,554,000, which is up 1.4%, which is well within the expected cost of living range. And I expected our appraised valuation was go up by more than 1.4, and I think when Renee said the tax rate down a penny, that's an indication that the appraised valuation went up. So I think the numbers appear what you would expect.
Okay. Any further discussion? I see none. All in favor, show of hands. I have myself, Vice President Wilson, Secretary Treasurer Rose, and Director Hayes. All in favor, no opposed. It passes.
All right. Thank you, Mud. So item 11, receive an update from Fire Chief Wade Carroll regarding the fire department's standard operating procedures. Chief, I'll turn that over to you at this point.
Okay, as per the ILA agreement, we needed to get our standard operating procedures approved and in place. Those revisions were completed in the latter part of this month. Were approved by the town manager and were put online and received by all of our city personnel, as shown in your ILA Addendum B attachment.
So, council, for your purposes, we don't take action on this. That is an administrative action that was taken, and you heard the report that the town manager has reviewed and received that. So I'll turn the meeting over to President Carr at this time.
Okay, this is our agenda number 3, receive an update, or excuse me, receive an update from Fire Chief Wade Carroll regarding the standard operating procedures for the fire department. Do I have a motion?
Do we have an
We-
action here? We
we
just have an update.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
been received.
Yeah, that's all right.
Good job.
I have a
sir.
question. for
Yes.
you. Okay, this has been loaded to Lexpool, right?
Yes, it has been.
Okay, and then if you look at, standard operating procedure, wearing apparel, protective clothing,
Yes, sir.
if you look at the last page of it, it has 2 letter Cs.
Okay.
So, you may wanna just revise that a little.
Yes,
bit.
sir, we will.
Okay, does anyone have anything else? No. Thank you, and
All right.
I appreciate this a lot. It's been ongoing for many years, promised many times, and you've been on board, what, about 3 months now or so?
Yes, sir, since May
Yeah,
1st.
exceptional job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, council agenda item number 12, consider and take appropriate action regarding amendment to section 7.1 retail customer charge, subsection A of the amended and restated contract for wholesale water supply and wastewater treatment services and water and wastewater operational services. Our packet had a copy of that proposed changes. Seems like you had the same copy, Mud, in your packet, is that right?
Appears to be the case.
So there was what commonly referred to as a red line, although mine's a blue line, but. so-
On 7.1,
You colorblind?
7.1, yeah. So the objective here was we kept running into this case where you did a rate change. It said you have to give us 60 days notice. That didn't seem to be the way we would operate. It makes sense to make this change, I think. And so we came up with a proposed wording change. So from council's standpoint, council, this item is properly before you. Would you like to make a motion to approve the ILA as proposed?
I so move.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Very well
All right.
written, very well written.
Very well written. Okay, you might consider who submitted it.
It's a joint effort.
Join it. Okay. All right, council, all in favor of approving the ILA as presented, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. I'll turn the meeting over to President Carr.
Okay, this is our agenda number 4, consider and take appropriate action regarding amendment to section 7.1, retail customer charge, subsection A of the amended and restated contract for wholesale water supply and wastewater treatment services and water and wastewater operational services. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the ILA as amended.
I have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Rose. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Vice President Wilson. Any discussion? Director Rose, I'll acknowledge you.
I appreciate, whether it's the attorney or a council member that did the draft wording on this. I think it's well done. Thank you.
Director Hayes, did you have anything? I saw you pull your mic down.
I have no comment.
Okay. And Mike, just to make sure, this pertains to anything in that rate order, as in, we made changes a little while ago on the days or something like that for the policy. I think it's on water rates or sewer rates.
That is correct.
Okay. Did we notify the town on that change?
We have not yet.
Okay. So this will override that one, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I think at the last meeting, did we make, I don't think,
I
I think
think
we were
the-
supposed to revise it and bring it back.
I think it comes back
Yeah.
to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we haven't
We-
exactly made that
Okay.
change yet.
Okay, I have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Rose, a second by Vice President Wilson. Any further discussion? I see none. Show of hands. All in favor? I have myself, Vice President Wilson, Secretary Treasurer Rose, and Director Hayes. 4, all opposed. I see none. It passes.
All right. I think we've completed all of our joint session items. The council never went into executive session, so we're not going to adjourn our meeting. We're going to merely go into executive session, but I'll do that after you adjourn, if you don't mind, President Carr.
I move to adjourn.
Yeah, we don't need a motion. Trophy Club Mud 1 will adjourn at 8:29.
All right. Let me just read this before we cut the tape off. Pursuant to the following designated section of the Texas Government Code, annotated Chapter 551, Texas Open Meeting Act, the council will convene into executive session to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, to discuss or deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, and deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person. And Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations under subsection 2, to discuss or deliberate the offer of financial or other incentives to a business prospect that the town seeks to have locate within the territory of the town. A description of property is north of Highway 14, east of Trophy Club Drive, and we are in executive session at 8:30. Council, if you want to take a short recess, we'll then get back in place. And council, if you will come to order, we have returned into regular session at 9:33. We have no action to take based on executive session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds, okay. I don't know who, but the motion was made by Kurtz, and Rowe seconded. All in favor, show your hands. We are adjourned at 9:34.